Hello everyone, and welcome to the M.O.W. channel. Today, we'll be diving into the story of the 18th Street Gang, the American Street Gang, currently clashing with MS-13. Before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe and like, it really helps the channel grow. Alright, let's get started. Los Angeles. The origins and explosive growth of the 18th Street Gang. The 18th Street Gang, also known as Barrio 18, is far more than just another street gang. Its origins trace back to the mid-1960s in Los Angeles, reflecting the intense socio-economic upheaval and identity crisis that immigrant communities were facing at the time. The story begins in Pico Union, a neighborhood where a mix of ethnicities and cultures converged amid urban struggle and change. By that time, the streets of Los Angeles were already dominated by long-established Mexican-American gangs, who had been rooted in the area for decades. These gangs were fiercely exclusive, often refusing to accept newcomers, especially the wave of recent immigrants arriving from Mexico and Central America. Young immigrants were treated as outsiders, facing daily harassment and exclusion from existing gangs. The formation of the 18th Street Gang was a direct reaction to that rejection. A group of young men from the area, turned away by traditional Mexican gangs because they were immigrants, decided to form their own crew. They named it after the street where they lived and gathered 18th Street, unknowingly planting the seed for what would become one of America's most powerful and violent street gangs. The key to 18th Street's explosive growth was its open recruitment policy. While other gangs restricted membership to Mexican Americans, 18th Street welcomed anyone willing to live the gang life regardless of race or national origin. As a result, large numbers of Central American youth from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala who had fled war and poverty in their home countries, found belonging and survival within 18th Street. By the 1970s and 1980s, the proportion of Central American members grew sharply. For many of these young refugees, joining a gang was the only viable path to safety, income, and identity in an unfamiliar, often hostile city. 18th Street provided them with protection, a sense of belonging, and illicit opportunities, spreading its influence rapidly across Los Angeles. Within just a few years, the gang had surpassed many of LA's older gangs in both size and brutality. Rather than operating under a single central authority, the 18th Street Gang evolved into a network of semi-independent cliques or sets. This decentralized structure allowed the organization to adapt and expand efficiently across LA's vast urban sprawl. Each clique controlled its own neighborhood or territory, while still maintaining the gang's shared culture, symbols, and allegiance. Among the gang's most recognizable symbols are their tattoos, the Roman numerals 18 or the number 18. These marks serve as declarations of loyalty and identity. Tattoos placed on visible areas like the face or neck often symbolize an irreversible commitment to the gang, a point of no return. The 18th Street Gang also developed a complex relationship with the Mexican Mafia La M. When 18th Street members are incarcerated, they often come under La M's control, following its directives even outside prison walls. This prison-street connection strengthened the gang's structure, discipline, and criminal network, helping it evolve from a loose street group into a highly organized criminal entity. Born from social exclusion and immigrant struggle, the 18th Street Gang's open-door policy and decentralized clique system transformed it into one of the largest, most violent, and diverse street gangs in the United States. Its rise marked a turning point in Los Angeles gang history and set the stage for decades of conflict, tragedy, and bloodshed that would follow. The rise of the 18th Street Gang was not merely an expansion of street-level violence. Their true threat lies in how they evolved from a local Los Angeles street gang into a multinational, corporate-style criminal organization. Their operations are driven by one clear objective: profit, and their income streams range from petty street crimes to sophisticated transnational trafficking networks. The primary and most stable source of income for the 18th Street Gang is drug distribution and sales. They have built a vast retail network across major U.S. cities, distributing cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and marijuana at the street level. Role as subcontractors. The gang maintains strategic partnerships with major Mexican drug cartels such as the Sinaloa Cartel and the Jalisco New Generation Cartel (CJNG). After these cartels smuggle large quantities of drugs across the Mexican border, the 18th Street Gang handles the last-mile distribution, breaking down bulk shipments and selling directly to consumers in U.S. cities. This arrangement provides steady revenue for the gang and risk diversification for the cartels. Controlled territories. The gang exerts tight control over its turf, monopolizing local drug markets. They eliminate or intimidate rival dealers through violence and enforce attacks on independent drug sellers operating within their zones. Alongside drug money, Extortion serves as another crucial income source, essentially functioning as a shadow tax system within communities under their control. Business extortion. In areas dominated by the gang, small businesses from restaurants and convenience stores to street vendors are required to pay regular protection fees. This payment is framed as protection from threats or rival interference, but refusal often results in arson, property destruction, assault, or even murder. Transportation extortion. In Central America, extortion is so widespread that bus companies and truck operators cannot function without paying the gang. A similar pattern occurs in the U.S., where small transport firms or illegal migrant transporters are forced to pay fees to avoid harassment or violence. Among their revenue streams, human trafficking and sexual exploitation stand out as the most brutal and inhumane. Cross-border exploitation. The gang targets vulnerable migrants, particularly women and children, attempting to cross from Central America or Mexico into the U.S. Victims are often kidnapped and forced into prostitution or labor, generating enormous illicit profits for the gang. Forced prostitution. Even female gang members, girlfriends, or relatives are sometimes coerced into sex work by gang leadership. This horrific system not only sustains the gang's finances, but also strengthens control and subjugation over women within the organization. Beyond these primary income sources, the 18th Street Gang engages in a wide array of traditional criminal enterprises to sustain its internal economy. Robbery and theft. Armed robberies, vehicle theft and resale, and home invasions serve as early-stage crimes, both as initiation rites and as a way to prove loyalty to the gang. Illegal arms trafficking. Through connections with Mexican cartels, the gang obtains and resells firearms to other criminal groups and individuals, forming another profitable stream. Money laundering. To legitimize their illicit earnings, the gang operates small, front businesses such as car washes and restaurants. While these appear legitimate, they function as conduits for laundering drug and extortion profits, blending illegal income with lawful revenue. The economy of the 18th Street Gang is a complex, diversified criminal enterprise built upon violence, coercion, and exploitation. They have transformed street-level brutality into a systematic tool for profit, undermining the safety and stability of both American and Central American societies for decades. Their existence now represents not just a law enforcement challenge, but a transnational economic threat rooted in organized crime. The history of the 18th Street Gang cannot be told without its greatest rival and eternal nemesis MS-13 Mara Salvatrucha. The conflict between these two organizations has gone far beyond simple gang rivalry, becoming a decades-long saga of organized violence that has shaken both the United States and Central America. For the 18th Street Gang, this war would bring some of the most devastating internal and external crises in its history. The enmity between 18th Street and MS-13 began in the streets of Los Angeles, the birthplace of both gangs. While 18th Street emerged in the 1960s, formed mainly by Mexican-American immigrants, MS-13 arose in the 1980s. Founded by Salvadoran refugees who sought to protect themselves from existing gangs after fleeing the brutal Salvadoran Civil War. Clash over territory. As MS-13 grew in strength, it inevitably encroached on areas of South and Central Los Angeles that had long been controlled by 18th Street. Competition for territory, particularly profitable zones for drug sales and street-level crime, escalated into a cycle of revenge, killings and violent retaliation that consumed both groups. Cultural and ethnic division. Although both gangs shared Hispanic immigrant roots, tension existed between 18th Street's Mexican identity and MS-13's Salvadoran origins. This ethnic divide deepened hatred among members, turning local disputes into personal and racial vendettas that fueled the conflict even further. The conflict reached a new level of intensity in the 1990s, when the U.S. government began large-scale deportations of immigrant criminals. Thousands of gang members, including many from 18th Street and MS-13, were deported to El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, carrying the LA gang war with them. Building power back home. Once deported, gang members recreated their U.S. gang culture in their home countries, organizing new cliques and recruiting local youth. War-torn Central America, already destabilized by poverty and corruption, provided the perfect breeding ground. Soon, both gangs were not only battling on the streets, but also inside prisons, where territorial wars raged with deadly ferocity. Escalating brutality. As the rivalry intensified, both sides sought to outdo each other. In acts of extreme violence, kidnappings, dismemberments, and even attacks on public transportation became tools of terror. These acts were designed to display dominance and instill fear. For 18th Street members, survival meant becoming even more ruthless. Their violence escalated as both a necessity and a symbol of strength. The war with MS-13 inflicted severe losses on the 18th Street Gang itself. Daily assassinations, ambushes, and reprisals destabilized the organization, claiming the lives of many senior leaders and eroding internal unity. Loss of manpower. The gang lost countless members in its prolonged war with MS-13. This loss forced the gang to recruit increasingly younger members, perpetuating a tragic cycle that drew more vulnerable youth into violence and crime. Destruction of communities. The greatest victims, however, were ordinary civilians living in territories controlled by either gang. In Central America, innocent people were often caught in crossfire or targeted simply for being associated, or even perceived as associated with one side. Within 18th Street's own zones, residents lived in constant fear, subjected to extortion, threats, and arbitrary violence. The conflict evolved into a transnational humanitarian disaster, spreading from Los Angeles to the streets of San Salvador, Tegucigalpa, and Guatemala City. This fatal rivalry remains both the reason for 18th Street's existence and the greatest threat to its survival. It defines the gang's identity as a perpetually violent, transnational organization, locked in an endless cycle of bloodshed that shows no sign of ending. When the violence and transnational criminal activities of the 18th Street Gang reached a breaking point, the group ultimately collided head-on with a formidable adversary, the United States federal government. This confrontation marked the peak of law enforcement crackdowns, posing an existential threat to the gang, and becoming one of the most devastating moments in its history. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, as the 18th Street Gang expanded its power across U.S. cities through drug trafficking, extortion, and brutal murders, American law enforcement no longer viewed it as a mere local street gang. Instead, it was officially classified as a transnational organized crime group. This designation elevated the gang from a regional policing issue to a top federal priority. The Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) formed a dedicated task force targeting the 18th Street Gang. Their mission was to track the gang's leadership and financial flows through extensive intelligence operations. The FBI analyzed the gang's decentralized clique structure, mapping out leaders and dismantling their interconnected criminal networks one by one. Recognizing that many members were undocumented immigrants or deportable individuals, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement ICE agency wielded its most powerful weapon: mass arrests and deportations. These operations became a cornerstone of the federal crackdown strategy. Through large-scale programs such as Operation Community Shield, ICE launched a nationwide campaign to suppress the 18th Street Gang's violence. The operation specifically targeted undocumented gang members with criminal records. Thousands of 18th Street members were arrested across the United States. Many of them, once their criminal histories were confirmed, were deported back to Central America. While the exact yearly deportation figures fluctuated, the multi-year campaign significantly weakened the gang's street presence and manpower. Federal indictments focused on high-ranking leaders. Under powerful laws such as the RICO Act, Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, clique bosses and key operatives received long prison sentences or were placed in federal penitentiaries. This systematic prosecution fractured the gang's central command and destabilized its internal hierarchy. Although the U.S. government's operations temporarily curtailed the gang's domestic influence, they also produced unintended and far-reaching consequences. Deported members returned to their home countries as veteran gangsters from the U.S., injecting new levels of violence, organization, and criminal sophistication into Central American gangs. These deportees rebuilt the 18th Street Gang's networks abroad and fueled the escalating war against rival group MS-13, empowered Central American factions, expanded into drug trafficking and human smuggling, exploiting U.S.-Mexico border routes. Thus, instead of eliminating the problem, U.S. crackdowns transformed it into a transnational threat, sending the violence and criminal enterprise back toward U.S. borders in a more covert and globalized form. The confrontation between the 18th Street Gang and the U.S. federal government dispersed the gang's power, resulting in mass incarcerations and deportations. However, it failed to eradicate the organization entirely. Instead, it reshaped the gang's operations into a borderless, transnational network, more elusive and harder to control. This pivotal clash marked the climax of the 18th Street Gang's modern history, revealing the deep complexity of combating globalized crime and the necessity for sustained international cooperation. After a massive crackdown by the U.S. government resulting in thousands of arrests, imprisonments, and deportations, the 18th Street Gang did not collapse. Instead, it evolved, adapting to new environments and fundamentally transforming its scale and structure. No longer the street gang that roamed Los Angeles in the 1980s, The group has now entered a new era as a transnational threat. At its peak, the 18th Street Gang was estimated to have between 30,000 to 50,000 members worldwide. Continuous pressure from law enforcement, however, has visibly reduced its numbers within the U.S. mainland. Their operations have also changed, moving away from overt, large-scale street confrontations to a far more discreet and decentralized mode of operation. With many top leaders arrested or deported, the gang's centralized command structure gave way to a clique-based system. Each clique now operates semi-independently, generating its own criminal revenue and managing its own territories. Communication among cliques remains loose, connected through flexible networks rather than strict hierarchies. This decentralization has made it far more difficult for law enforcement to dismantle the organization in a single coordinated strike, effectively turning decentralization into a survival strategy. Gone are the days of flashy displays of power or public turf wars. The gang now prefers to maintain a low profile, focusing instead on quiet, efficient, business-like criminal enterprises. They deliberately avoid unnecessary attention from the authorities. This evolution has turned them into a shadow organization, still powerful, but operating out of sight of mainstream media and public awareness. The most significant change in the 18th Street Gang structure is its transformation into a fully transnational criminal network, a direct, unintended result of the U.S. deportation policies. Thousands of deported members rebuilt the gang's infrastructure in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. These overseas factions maintain constant contact with U.S.-based cliques, exchanging information on drug trafficking, weapons trade, and human smuggling operations. This transnational setup also fostered deeper collaboration with Mexican cartels. The 18th Street Gang now plays a crucial intermediary role, controlling cross-border smuggling routes and human trafficking corridors, generating vast profits. Through these links, the gang has expanded its international reach and influence, acting as a broker in the borderland criminal economy. Caught between continuous enforcement pressure and rivalry with MS-13, the 18th Street Gang has strategically adjusted its criminal portfolio. Rather than engaging in high-risk street crimes, it has shifted toward high-profit, low-visibility offenses. Leveraging younger members, the gang has entered the digital arena, engaging in online fraud, identity theft, and cyber extortion. These white-collar crimes allow them to generate large sums of money without resorting to physical violence. Gone are the days of collecting cash from street vendors. Now, the gang conducts international extortion and remittance scams through phone and internet schemes, making their operations harder to trace and prosecute. Despite widespread arrests and deportations, the 18th Street Gang did not disappear. They traded centralized leadership for flexible, resilient networks, shifting their criminal base beyond U.S. borders into transnational organized crime. Although their numbers may have decreased, the complexity and sophistication of their threat have grown, posing serious and enduring challenges to both the United States and Central America. The future of the 18th Street Gang now points toward its transformation into a multinational criminal enterprise, closely intertwined with major drug cartels and global illicit economies. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps our channel grow. We'll be back tomorrow with another true crime case or mystery.